Welcome to the series we are calling The Short Film Angle. This is the series where we shine a light on some of the new short films and interview the filmmakers behind them, getting insights into the filmmaking and storytelling process. My name's Alex, and it is just me again this week. Today I will be talking to Montana Mann. Montana is a Persian-American award-winning writer-director from Virginia. Her most recent narrative short film, AZI, world premiered at Palm Springs International Short Fest and won the SAG Indie Award at Holly Shorts. The feature adaptation of the same short participated in the 2024 Film Independent Fast Track program. Don't worry, I will be asking Montana all about this in the interview. AZI is inspired by Montana's own coming-of-age experience, and it tells the intimate and timely story of a Persian-American teenager contending with her identity and sexuality. The short follows 17-year-old AZI, played by Dior Negeen Goodjohn, on a weekend away with her best friend's family, where she unexpectedly forms a mysterious and electric connection with another woman on the trip, Elizabeth, played by Breeda Wool, resulting in a psychological game that raises complex questions about their motives, power dynamics, and the ability to take control of one's own agency. The film is in the middle of its festival run at the moment. You may have seen it at Sundance or as part of the online offering. It was actually part of the short film collection that included our previous interviewees short film, Julian Lucerne, Brian Groves, Somebody Cares. We will put a link in the show notes to when it's more publicly available. But as always, I hope you will find the insights into the filmmaking process fascinating and valuable, whether you have seen the film or not. So, without further ado, let's get into the interview with Montana Mann. Welcome to the show, Montana Mann.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No problem. You've had a pretty amazing start to your career so far, working with some big brands, some major studios, which you've sold series to. I was just kind of interested what inspired you to get into filmmaking.
Well, I think that I, as a kid, was very lonely, and I would watch television over and over again. I didn't have TV in my house, so I had 3 VHF tapes, and one was Thelma and Louise, the other one was Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and the third was my mom's old soap reel. These are her soap actress reel that she had.
Oh, wow.
So
okay, nice.
I just watched those over and over again, and I think I really fell in love with where movies can take you. And so I started out more as a storyteller than a filmmaker, and I did short stories, and I would write a lot of fiction. And then I did some photography, and I sort of liked that feeling, and I decided to sort of mix those two things together to make to become a director, I guess. And yeah, that's the spark notes of I think what got me started in it. But I just loved watching movies.
Sure.
And I loved escaping in movies, and I think being part of that process is pretty magical.
You said to become a director, I guess. I'm kind of interested because obviously you wrote this short film as well. Did you approach filmmaking from a writer's stance first, and then kind of that took you on to becoming a director, or was it always the intention to become a director?
I think I fell in love with writing first because I didn't need other people and I didn't need equipment to do it. And so I could do it in my room, and I could make up all these stories in my room. And so I think that was really freeing for me. So I fell in love with that medium first. And it's the weirdest thing because even though I had sold projects, when people ask me like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm just like in entertainment. I still feel so weird saying I'm a writer. I'm a screenwriter. You know, it's so bizarre. But I fell in love with that medium first. And then once I started directing, that's when I fell in love with directing. And I was like, wow, this is like, I can put these two things together. This is pretty great.
Gotcha. And did you go to like a film school or a university or anything?
I did. I went to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, in California.
Is that where you decided, or was there like a significant moment within that course where you're like, oh, actually directing will allow me to kind of control my vision a bit more maybe? Was that
Probably.
Yeah.
I think probably. And also I loved the ability to work with actors and realize that you didn't maybe need so much dialogue. Yeah. And I liked that in the directing, I could strip away the overwriting. And I thought like, wow, what a cool process. It's like you put all these words together and then you get on stage and you're like, well, that actor just said that with their eyes and I don't really need to put it lying there. So I think that was another reason I fell in love with it.
Interesting. Yeah. I had not that I am a successful writer at all or anything like that, but I had a similar experience, but like opposite way around, where I went into my kind of film studies thinking, oh, I'm going to be a director. The director does everything. That's what I want to be. And then realized that it was the stories that I was more focused on. And then realized through that process of study that actually it's the story element of film that I'm more interested in, and kind of like lent towards that. So yeah, very interesting. I think that's kind of sometimes, I and ah about whether film school was the right thing to do or anything like that.
Oh, you and me both. Yeah.
you learn, I think, if anything, you learn the angle of which part of film that you want to kind of lean into, which is obviously the kind of a very good outcome from it.
Yeah.
So to talk a little bit about AZI, I guess for our audience, would you tell me a little bit about the short film or what the short film is about?
Yes, it's a short film about a teenager who goes on a weekend vacation with her best friend's family. And while there, she gets into a power dynamic with an older woman on the trip. And the film is about power. It's about power, agency, coming into your own, a coming of age. But it's also about how you can connect with another person. And I think that this story is a very unique way of how two people found a very interesting connection.
Yes, absolutely. I'm correct in thinking that the short film is based on a kind of true story or something that happened within your own life. Is that something that you're comfortable with discussing at all?
Yeah, we can get into it. We'll touch the surface of that.
Sure.
The actual play-by-play events of the short are fictional, but it's inspired by a connection I had with someone who was older than me when I was a senior in high school. And so part of the short is thinking about, okay, like what are the things that happened on that weekend? And now that I'm older and I look back at it, what's the new lens I'm bringing to it, I guess, is it how I would think about that. And it's two things going on. It's like this coming of age, sensual feeling of being by the lake. But I think that also there's an unsettling feeling happening. And the unsettling feeling that happens in the film is twofold. It's like, one, it's when you're starting to figure out like maybe what you're attracted to or situations that turn you on or whatever, your heart rate definitely goes up. There's an anxious element to that. I think everyone can relate to.
Yeah.
But on top of that, as I'm older now, looking back at the situation, part of the unsettling feeling is the power dynamic, and that it is an uncomfortable thing to watch sometimes. So it was really pulling from the feelings of the real situation and then sort of dramatizing sort of more things on top of that.
Yes, gotcha. And I think that the short does a really good job of that, because it really kind of looks inward into those kind of power dynamics. And between the two leads, AZI and Elizabeth, it's quite difficult to read at times whether it's a sensual thing or it's a flirtatious thing.
Yeah.
And then there's also that element, because you can't ignore the fact that Elizabeth is a lot older, that there's an awkwardness to it and something that's uncomfortable. So I guess, was the power dynamics element the thing that you were really trying to unpack with the short film?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I really like movies that make me uncomfortable. And probably it's because I watch so much content that I get bored very easily. So when I make something that makes me a little uncomfortable, I'm like, ooh, what is this? Like I'm into it. So I really wanted to put the audience in that position on purpose, where everything is so beautiful, it's so sensual, and then there's this power dynamic that we're like, right, but there's an age gap here, and how am I supposed to feel about this? And there's no wrong answers in viewing the film. Everyone's going to sort of have a different feeling when they leave, which I think is magical. But definitely the whole film revolves around power, and every decision that everybody makes in it is about power.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. The film like has this brilliant way. I guess what I want to say was like I really love like the blocking in this film, the way that you framed certain images, and it's not a like outright point of view film, but the way that certain characters are obstructed, even the main character at times obstructed by different elements, whether that be other characters or branches or leaves, light. I thought that was a really interesting way of maybe like putting you in the head of AZI, and I just wanted to know if you could like maybe discuss a little bit about the creative language of the film and what you were trying to like convey with those kind of really beautiful shots, and just something that stood out to me there.
Well, getting compliments on anything that has to do with shots and directing is just like, it just made my world. So thank you for that. I love shooting through things when it comes to something that's a secret. And so what is transpiring in this film, no one else knows is going on but these two women. And when you're in on a secret, visually, I wanted the audience to feel like they were maybe watching certain things that they didn't have a space for. Like they weren't necessarily invited. They were secretly watching this happen. And so shooting through plants and what's obscured and what's being hidden and what's being revealed. Like I wanted that to be part of the visual language of the film, to really hit home that like I wanted the audience to feel like maybe they weren't supposed to be watching certain moments, but they were there.
I'm interested as well if at the start of the film, the father character is very much kind of, you don't see his face until later in the film. And I wondered if that was like a intentional choice to kind of show, I guess, where AZI's attraction lies, essentially. We see a lot of the female characters. Was that the
I know,
choice
poor
there?
Dan, our actor, was like, wow, great, thanks for showing my face so much. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I think that it's because it really is about this relationship that AZI has with her best friend, also this relationship with this woman, and it's about where AZI's attention is. And I think that where AZI is looking is towards the person that's making her feel a little bit uncomfortable, but that she's also drawn to. And I don't think that the dad is that person. So it didn't make sense to me to really give a lot of visual real estate to a character that I don't think AZI would think twice about because she's comfortable with it. There's nothing really there. Then I think that really focusing her attention in on this new woman in this dynamic was really important, and zeroing in all that.
Gotcha. To look further into AZI as well, I was very interested by kind of some of the opening shots. There's a lot of close-ups. I think there's like two sections within the film with a lot of close-ups, a lot of eating food, which I thought was quite interesting. But I wondered if that was to do with kind of like power dynamics again.
Yeah. So,
or uncomfortability, maybe.
Yeah, uncomfortability for sure. I love really close shots. If I could shoot an entire film on a macro lens, I would. Like, I love it. And I don't know what it is about it that I love, but I feel like when I'm that close to someone, they're real and I can ingest them and inhale them. And like, so I love being that close. I also think it's incredibly sensual to be that close to somebody.
Yeah.
So, and I definitely wanted Elizabeth's entrance into the movie to be a bit jarring and like a bit mysterious. We were like, wait, what does she look like? Who is this person? Usually when you watch TV and certain things are like, we've got to open on this character and we're going to open on her in a medium. So you know exactly what she looks like. And then we're going to cut to a close-up. And it's very formulaic. And I thought, I really wanted people to be like, wait, who is this person? Like, whoa, what is happening? And so that was like the visual choice there and why I stuck with that. And then in terms of the macro stuff with eating, I think that there are so many times, like I was always the person invited to friends' vacations or at friends' houses for dinner. And it was never really at my house. for numerous reasons. That's the next movie. But I think that I always felt so uncomfortable at other people's tables. I felt like an imposter in other people's homes. And I just felt like always an outsider in other people's houses, and like never felt like I could invite any friends over to mine, or that I had a family that was like receiving of that. So there's so many memories I have of my adolescence where I'm just at other people's dinner tables. And especially on this vacation that inspired this short film, I felt extra out of place because I felt like, oh, they're paying for me and they're paying for me to stay there. And then I felt very uncomfortable by the situation that occurred that day. And so I felt like such an imposter that they were going to find me out and they were going to kick me out. So I really wanted like the eating to be over the top and the eyes and the staring at that table to be over the top. So we really felt that AZI was like, get me out of here. Like I feel very uncomfortable and I feel out of place. I also just like watching people eat. I think it says a lot about them as a person. I don't know. I don't know what that says about me. But I just think that like when I watch certain actresses eat, like I'm just like, that's the person for the role. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know how to describe it, but like when I see them eat, I'm like, that's the person.
Interesting. So an audition with you might be at a restaurant.
Some lunch, yeah. And I don't know. It's like the weirdest thing, but it's like something I've always believed in. It's like just observing how people eat, I think says a lot about them, where they come from, if they're self-conscious, how they carry themselves, like whatever it is. And I love that. I love observing human beings that way.
Interesting. That is very interesting. One of the other kind of close-up shots at the beginning is on AZI's necklace, which you could correct me if my ignorance here is a Father Ha symbol.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So it's an ancient. It's from the Zoroastrian religion, and it's from Iran. Then it's like one of the oldest religions in Iran. It predates like any monotheistic religion. And then it's just kind of become like a symbol of pre-revolution. And then the writing is Farsi, and it's her name totally spelled out. So AZI is short for Azadeh, and that her name is Azadeh on the necklace.
Got you.
Yeah.
So I was interested in obviously showcasing that side of AZI and her heritage there. Like, how important was it for you to kind of represent, I guess, Persian-Americans or Iranian-Americans and their stories, I guess, within this film, but also like going forward within your kind of filmography? Because I believe you identify as a Persian-American, right?
Yes, yeah. So I think it's so much of my identity. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in the American South. And I think that it was really important for me that this character AZI was Persian, and I casted someone who's Persian. And the film really isn't about Persian culture. It's just about a Persian girl and this experience that she has. So with that, there's not much room to tell the audience this character is Iranian. You know, you could put some expository information. They're like, where are you from again? Like, you could do something, you know what I mean? And like dump something in there. But I was like, the easiest way to just nod to who she is as a person is to put it on her necklace. And that necklace, actually one of the ones that she's wearing is mine. So I usually wear that. So I think that moving forward with my art, I really want to tell stories about Iranian Americans, but I want to tell really kind of different from the norm stories. Yes. And I don't really want to tell stories that are super trauma based or that are, about, taking off the hijab. Like I want to tell a story about my experience being Iranian American in America. And I think that, that's how I want to carry it through. And just to cast more Iranians in roles where we're not super scary,
Yeah.
Where we're just sort of like normal people, which we are, and just having fun, you know, getting into weird situations with older women on weekend vacations. Like everybody does that, you know.
I like that. It's kind of like just because they're running American, but they're placed there within the story. You know, it is an element of their character. But I guess in this film as well, it maybe adds to an element of uncomfortability.
Yes.
Being on a holiday with, I guess, a white American family.
Yes.
And you know, it doesn't seem as if AZI, there's like a big culture shock there, but obviously there might be some uncomfortability.
Yeah. And I think that one thing that's interesting when you watch it with a live audience, depending on like where you are, we've now shown this like in LA and in Virginia, Sundance, all this stuff. And so each audience is different. But it's interesting because some audiences right away pick up on the layeredness of the towel moment. And other audiences are like, that's a microaggression. They get super serious, you know? So it's been very interesting to see how different people read that situation. And then by the time they get to the end and to the last shot, I think the whole audience is like, wait, what? So I think like I love like that range of reactions to all of it. But it definitely adds another layer of her visually standing out from the pack that is very interesting to me to play with. And I think that I love that adds to the uncomfortability. And I think it's just part of the fabric of, that story. But I think Dior brought such a presence in that role, and also like her background and everything she brought so much to like all of that. So I think you can feel that underneath the surface.
Yeah. I think as well, like the bit I reacted to in terms of, and I'm probably going to get the exact line wrong, but it's when she kind of she role reverses the same trick that Elizabeth has used on her, and she says, you know, you've got to get into an argument with your boyfriend. Yeah. And then I think Elizabeth replies with like, why are you so weird? Or something like that. I can't remember the exact line there.
She says, what is wrong with you?
That's it. What is wrong with you? And I thought, I wonder if that is a microaggression. And I wonder, maybe I read into that more than I did the towel scene, but I don't know why that is.
Yeah. I mean, I think Elizabeth is a complicated woman.
Absolutely.
And I think that even if you asked her what her motivations were, she wouldn't quite be able to answer any of it. But I do think that line specifically, we had so many different readings on that line. There was a cut where we thought maybe we should take that line out. But I thought it was specifically manipulative since she had started the situation to begin with.
Yes.
So I was like, I sort of like that she's throwing AZI like this red herring where she's basically like, how dare you? Like, that is just so left field. Like, that is so inappropriate. And then she gives it to her later, you know? So it's like, and she ends up causing the fight. So I thought that line is like just extra manipulative and extra Elizabeth-y, you know? And so we ended up keeping it in, but yeah.
That's definitely when I had the most physical reaction when I was like, wait, you started this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I guess talking of the actors themselves, obviously both Dior Negeen Goodjohn and Breeda Wool in your kind of lead roles here. What was the process like to casting them in these roles? And did the casting kind of change the characters at all going in, like from script to screen?
That's a great question. I don't think it changed that much from script to screen. I knew Breeda because she had done a thesis project of mine when I was in college. And I remember she auditioned for me then. And I was so shocked by how good of an actress she was that like I couldn't move out of my chair. And I was just like, what just happened? Like, she's so incredible. And so I just knew she was going to knock it out of the park. The hard part with Breeda is that she gives you so much gold. When you're editing, you're just like, I want to put all these in. There's like 3 different movies here. Like, which one do we pick? So I think that it was just pretty magical. I couldn't have asked for, honestly, a better cast. I was so nervous going into the short because I thought this casting is just solely dependent on these actors and the performance. Like, the whole movie is just cast dependent. So I was like, if I don't get this right, like, my savings are going in the toilet. Like, this is going to be it. And I was just so blown away on set by like how much everybody prepared, came ready, like understood the subtext, did their research. Like Dior reached out to Emma, who plays Morgan, and they hung out numerous times before we shot so they could be comfortable and they could improv. I had like, 3 other scenes of just them improving that I could cut a whole nother movie on. Like everybody was just so amazing. And I think that when you cast right as a director, your job is so much easier. You're not trying to force anybody to be something they're not. They just are. They bring that presence with them. And I really feel like just so incredibly grateful that that all worked out.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. I guess maybe I should have asked you this earlier, but you mentioned there your savings and putting your savings on the line for the film.
Yeah.
Did you start just by yourself going, I'm going to make this short film, or did you go to a production company? How did you get this off the ground, I guess?
So I originally knew that I wanted to make this a movie, a feature film. And my background is in commercials and music videos. And then I took a break from all of that to write for television and develop projects for TV. So I knew that no one was going to give me money to make this movie based off the reel I had. I was like, there's just no way. Like, I haven't done anything that's like this. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use my savings and I'm going to make this movie. I think it worked out pretty well because we got it to Sundance. So like, I'm grateful I used my savings, but like, honestly,
Absolutely.
like, girl needs some money now. I then was just like, okay, I know that I want to make this movie. So the question was then, do I make a similar story with a similar tone, or do I just take a chunk out of the feature film and make a proof of concept? And I just thought, you know what? I don't think people are going to understand the tone of my movie. I'm just going to pull straight from the feature and make it a contained short and try and sell the feature based off this short film and make it a proof of concept. So that's how that originated. And then I couldn't find a producer that I jibed with for a long time, mostly because they had never seen any of my weird European movies that I am in love with. And all of them were like, never saw that, never saw that. And I was like, wow, how am I going to find like a producer that's creative, that understands movies, that loves movies, but also understands my project? And I got really, really lucky. A mutual friend introduced me to Steven Snyder, who's the producer on this short, who's like, I don't know what karma I did in my past life to get Steven as a producer, but he is like incredible. And he's stuck with me now for the rest of his life. He's never going to be able to get rid of me. And he just, right away I spoke to him, I felt so calm. I felt so safe. And I was like, this is the story I want to make. He's like, I love the script. I get it. And he's like, it reminds me of X, Y, and Z. And I was like, oh my God, those are the movies. Like, that's what I want to do. And then we geeked out on all the movies. He's seen probably more movies than I have. And then he helped me so much with the heavy lifting and getting it all done. So I think that, that sort of really pushed everything. And then in terms of finding Dior, I didn't know any Persian actresses that were 17.
Sure.
It's very rare. And to do material like this, even smaller. So a friend of mine who was at a dinner was like talking to somebody else. I don't remember exactly how this happened, but the Persian community is small. And they were like, you need to contact Lindsay Weissmuller, who did the Persian version. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I called her and I was like, hey, this person recommended you. And she was like, oh, you should hire my casting associate, Thackeray Goldstein. And he was amazing. And so he brought me Dior. And then we did like an open casting call for Morgan and Ben. And then I contacted Breeda because I knew her. And then we sort of put those pieces together and we're like, okay, I think these work. But it was pretty much like right away when I saw everybody's tape that I was like, that's the one. I was like very clear on what I wanted. And then we had Dior come in and audition. It wasn't really an audition. It was more like we worked through the scenes together live. So I could see kind of like how she worked, and she came so prepared. She was so professional. And if I was that professional at 17, my career would be in a totally different place. But she's like so professional. She's amazing. And then once I could really see my cast, then it was like, oh, this is going, like, this is real. And then we could start building out like all the other parts. But that's sort of, how we got into this crazy journey of me dumping my savings account into a 14-minute film.
Did you have quite a big kind of like pre-production phase on the film then? Was it
not really? Few weeks.
Few weeks, gotcha. And I'm interested as well. Like, I guess number one, at what point did you bring in your director of photography, Colin O? And then I guess like how much planning did you put into kind of location, weather, I guess, as well?
Yeah.
Though I imagine if you're filming in Los Angeles, you don't have to worry too much.
Yeah.
Maybe something more that I think about in the UK. But like for me, location-wise, it was just like absolutely stunning, along with kind of like gorgeous cinematography.
Thank you for saying that.
That's all right. Just sun-soaked, lovely, blissful, just wanted to be on holiday just watching it. You know what I mean?
Thank you. That took us forever to find that location. Like just thinking about finding that location, like I have PTSD from it. It was so tricky because California, you think it has so much water, but we don't have any water. We're in a drought. So like all of our rivers and all of our lakes, they're not healthy. They're muddy. The rivers you can't have actors in those rivers. So, and there's like no river. There's like one small creek that probably still has water, so it's like once you pass the summer, we shot this in October. Once you pass the summer, it's like, it's dry. So we had to search. I found, this is a funny story. I have a dog who's the love of my life, and my world revolves around making her life a lot better. And there's an app called
relate.
Yeah. there is an app called Sniff Spot where you can rent other people's houses and properties to take your dog to. Nice. So there is a lake that allows you to go swimming with your dog on this Sniff Spot app. And I thought, man, I wonder like I could rent this for a movie shoot. So I contacted the guy and he was like, oh yeah, I'm on this other site. So we go to visit it. And I think we did a good job framing out the freeway that's behind it.
Oh, yeah. I did not get that. So it felt very remote.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, my God, there's a freeway. So we had to do like a sound test to make sure you could still hear the actors. But that is a private man-made lake on an avocado and orange tree farm. And we had to drive like 45 minutes outside of LA to get to it. But in terms of Colin is great. I worked on we had known each other for years through mutual friends. And we're always like, we should work together. We never did. And then I ended up making a music video and we hired him on that. And we had a great time working on that. And so I asked him, do you want to do this short film? And he's great. And he brought his amazing crew. He's such a calm, chill guy. He's down to solve problems. We didn't have that much prep time, but we did do one camera test with filters. Gotcha. And I believe that we used a quarter pearlescent, but I could be wrong on that. But I think that's a filter that we used throughout the whole film to make it just look like a little bit dreamier. And then we really worked hand in hand in prep with our colorist from Company 3, Coleman Mason. And I was like very clear from the beginning when I brought them on board that like, this is the look I want. Is this possible? And if not, tell me how to do this. And so we worked with him in prep for like a week and a half or two to figure out and make sure that like the filter that we were using wasn't going to get us in trouble in color and all that. And then once we gave it to him in color, he really pushed the filmic look of it and the texture and the grain, and he added all of that to the short.
Oh wow, yeah, no. I think it all pays off because I think just the look and feel of it is just like I said, like that kind of dreamy holiday lovely fashion there. It just, yeah,
Thank you.
brilliant. You mentioned that you use this short as a proof of concept for a feature film, and I'm right, I believe, in thinking that it was part of the 2024 Film Independent Fast Track program.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Does that mean we're getting a feature, or it's on its way to become?
It is on its way. It is on its way. We're bringing on board some new people in the new year. We've made some amazing connections through Film Independent and Sundance. And so we have some starting funds that are going towards sort of like the overall budget of the film. And we're really hoping that we can shoot this year. But it just really depends if we can raise the money in time. And obviously we have a certain amount of time before summer ends that we can shoot it. So we're really hoping that we can get it done this year. But that train is leaving the station. We're forging full steam ahead, and I really hope that we can find the right partners to make it work.
Amazing. I think you mentioned it earlier that you almost took the scene straight from the film. So I was really interested to know, I guess maybe you don't want to reveal. Is this a start? Is this a middle? Is this somewhere near the end?
Yeah. So the feature film, I can get into it a little bit. The feature film is way more of an erotic thriller.
Okay.
And it takes place over 2 periods of time. And it revolves around the disappearance of Elizabeth. So basically, Elizabeth disappears, and you track back to what led the leading up to her disappearance. And then in the present day, you are almost 10, 16 years in the future. And AZI, there's a new update in the disappearance case. And so both these time periods weave together to basically explain what happened all those years ago and the new twist of what is happening in the present. So that scene is, I want to say it's like almost like the end of Act 1, and it's in the past when AZI gets invited to go to this weekend vacation with Morgan, and it's her first time meeting Morgan's dad's new girlfriend. There's a little bit of a difference in the feature film. AZI and Elizabeth have met before, but I'm not going to get into that, as we'll spoil it.
Of course.
So this is their second time meeting, which you don't have to know in the short film, but that is actually what it is. And then there's some dialogue changes in the short film so I could compact the story in 14 minutes. And in the feature film, some of those instances are more spread out.
That was kind of where I was going to go next. I was really intrigued by, like, you can obviously take a scene, but it might not work as a short film because you want to have some kind of structure to it with a satisfying payoff. And I guess I was just kind of intrigued in, like, are there maybe not changes because you've spoken about that already, but maybe even like things that you left off the table, certain scenes that maybe you filmed and thought, no, this doesn't work within the structure of 14 minutes.
Yeah, there was one scene that's missing from the edit of the film. And that scene is, so if you remember when she's in the bathroom and she has the towel over her head, and then you rack focus through the mirror to the yellow dress hanging in the closet, right? That shot. After that, there's a scene where she leaves the bathroom and she goes into that guest bedroom and she starts going through all of Elizabeth's things. And she puts on her jacket. She takes like a piece of gum and starts chewing on it. She goes to her purse and goes through all her personal items.
Yeah.
And we took that out because we thought that it just made our film too long. And we were, one, worried that it was going to affect our chances of getting into festivals because it was too long. But two, we were like, do we really need this in the short? And I don't really think that we did really need it. I think it's a really cool thing for maybe the movie, but for the short film, I'm just not sure what it buys us. And and maybe it makes us less surprised that she took the dress because she's in the room for so long. So, but that was like the only scene that we edited. That was written, that we shot, and that we edited out.
Yes, gotcha. I can understand if in the feature, if she's met Elizabeth before, that maybe works better with that, and then
Yeah.
if it's first time meeting her, and obviously within the confines of a short film, you're maybe like putting too much of your cards on the table in that moment in a film that is very much about kind of where is this heading? Well, a
Yeah.
lot of intrigue surrounding. I can
Yeah.
see that. I wondered as well with the ending, how did you know where to end it? Or is that obvious when I come to watch the feature? Like, no, this is the ending of the film. Or did you have anything else in mind?
We shot a little bit at the end. There's only like a 30-second extra piece at the end. So basically, at the end of the short, she gives back the dress, and they have this exchange, and then AZI leaves. Elizabeth shuts the door. And AZI goes into the hallway, and before she goes back into the room with Morgan, she just sort of stands there, like processing what's happening. And that was the original ending. But then when I saw, because I wanted it to be a proof of concept and really get people going like, wait, what's going to happen next? That really determined where I ended the short, because I really wanted people to be like, wait, what? Like, and like want to be like, wait, now I want to know what's going to happen. Like, what does that look? And what does that mean? And all, I didn't want so much extra space at the end of the movie for people to feel like the story was done.
Yes.
And I wanted them to have like that reaction. So as soon as we edited the film and I saw Dior's reaction there, I think it was also Steven, my producer, that was like, that's a good place to end. And I was like, yeah. It is.
I really like the ending, because you're right that there's enough to make me go, I'm so fascinated by this whole dynamic. I want to know more. But also there's like a slight smirk from AZI where it's almost as if like, I won this battle of the minds.
Yeah.
I succeeded in what I was achieving. So there's enough satisfaction there, but also enough kind of allure to be like, what happens next? This is such an interesting dynamic. Talking of what happens next, obviously you just premiered the short at the Sundance Film Festival, right?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
How was that? That must have been amazing to be able to kind of get that. Did it? No, it didn't premiere there though, did it?
It had its Utah premiere there, its Sundance premiere, but not its world premiere. Its world premiere was at Palm Springs Short Fest.
Yes.
And then we won the SAG Indie Award at Holly Shorts. And then we screened at Virginia Film Festival, where I grew up. And then we went to
that
Sundance.
must have been a very cool kind of like
different
full
audience.
circle moment.
Different audience. But yeah. Definitely a very different audience in Virginia than it is in Sundance or Los Angeles, for sure.
Oh, interesting. Did they react differently to the film?
They were more quiet.
Oh, interesting.
They were very, very, very much more quiet. And I think that, Virginia is predominantly a more conservative state.
Sure.
And the area that I grew up in is not. It's pretty liberal because it's a college town. But yeah, I think that like it was interesting seeing the difference in how it played with different audiences. Sundance had a blast watching it. They were like, that's the thing that I think is interesting, is that when you watch the short film alone and you're like alone in your office or your house or whatever, I think you tend to read the short as more serious.
Sure.
But when you're around other people in an audience, people are like giggling and they're like, oh my God, and they're making noises. And I was like, oh, that's the experience of seeing it with a group of people. So Sundance was amazing because they were having so much fun watching it. They were laughing at times. They were and it was like, it really felt like very energetic, and they were like locked in to everything happening in the film the whole time. Like they were never spacing out. They were like in it. And just to be at Sundance, I mean, like, how can you not have a good time at Sundance? It's like a dream. Like, I don't even know how anyone can go to Sundance and be like, it was all right. Like, your film is at Sundance. It's like, when I first found out I was going to Sundance, I didn't know if I was having a psychotic break or if it was real life. Like, I really couldn't. I was like, I don't know if this is real or like I've just mentally like lost it. Like, am I actually going to Sundance? So yeah, I mean, it's just like we were on a cloud nine. It was amazing.
Oh, I can imagine. I can
Yeah.
imagine. Like, so that was your first time going to the festival then?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, it is. It is like the dream festival for indie filmmaking, isn't it? It's just
It
like that
really
is
is.
I
Yeah.
remember like growing up, Sundance was always like the pinnacle of film festivals. And then they brought one over to London. And that was my first ever film festival, not actually having a film there, but actually going to a film festival was Sundance London, because I was like, as soon as it had the Sundance name, that was it. I was like, I have to get out to see that one. I think, I'm trying to think, it was definitely a birthday present. It might have been a big birthday. It might have been like 16 or 18. I can't remember.
Oh my gosh.
And my dad took me, and I was just like,
oh
the best
my God. That's amazing.
I saw Robert Redford. I was like, that was it.
Wow.
I had a blog at the time. I tried to hand him a business card, and his bodyguard was like, "Nope." But yeah,
just
that was
full on football kicks you like.
yeah. It literally shoved against the wall. Like, nope, get your hand away from Robert Redford. But
oh my God, that's amazing. But no, I love that, and I that's the magical spirit of Sundance. There were 2 filmmakers at Sundance that I met that lived right outside of Park City, and and they grew up Mormon, and they said that they would like sneak out, and every time Sundance was happening, they would sneak out and go to Sundance and sneak into movies. And I just thought, like, that is like, I was like, that's incredible. Like, I was like, my heart was just like, I wanted to start crying. I was like, that is so incredible. And I was like, that's so magical. Film in itself. I know. I was like, you guys have to write that. They're like, whatever. I care. Like, sort of like, they're just very chill dudes. But I was like, I don't think you understand how incredible that is.
You have to know that from the perspective of anybody outside of Utah, it's like, that is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a dream. They call you to tell you the news. And they called my cell phone, and I immediately just started crying. Like, I was just like sobbing. I think I told the girl that I loved her. Like, I blacked out. I honestly, I don't know what happened, but I ended the phone call and I thought, okay, did that just happen? I was like, what do I do now? And then I called my producer crying. It's probably the first and last time you'll ever hear me cry ever. And I was like, we got into Sundance, and I was like sobbing my eyes out. And a Sundance was a dream for him. He had been going for so long. He had volunteered numerous years. It was like his favorite festival in the whole world. And so another really amazing part about our film getting into Sundance was that we could give that gift to everyone that worked on the film. And like, that was like, to me, the biggest thing. It was like, you guys took part in this and worked so hard to help me do this. And like, look at what we get to do now. And like, they get to put Sundance on their resume. Like, that really meant a lot to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm always intrigued as well, going there as a filmmaker with a film in the program. How much time do you get to spend to like enjoy the festival? So you hadn't been before, so like, do you get to go and watch other films, or are you there? You're networking, you're selling. You gotta make connections.
Yeah, we tried. I wish that I could have seen not only more features but also specifically more short film. But they invite you to all these events like directors brunch and producers lunch and all these different organizations that you want to sort of like meet and shake hands with. And it's really important to get that face time.
Oh, brilliant.
So like, balancing all of that is I'm not sure who can do it well, but we were able to see some feature films. And obviously the other short films in my block were incredible, and I got to see those numerous times. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty incredible festival, and it really, the amount of gratitude that I felt towards being there, I can't even like describe how grateful I was to be part of all of that.
Oh, brilliant. Is there anything next in terms of like kind of the festival circuit? We spoke to Julian Lasser, who had one, I think it was in your short film program, Somebody Cares.
Yeah, I love Julian. He's great.
And he's brilliant. He's brilliant. We spoke to him and Brian Grow, and they mentioned like, once Sundance happens, like other festivals start calling. Like,
yes, I think that they're gonna do great. And also, like, what's so great about Julian's film is that it's short, so it's like you can fit that into like a lot of programs. And I think that sometimes people don't realize, like, sometimes your film is so worthy of being at a place, but because it's too long, they're not going to take your film. Sure. So I think that Julian's going to kill it. He's going to do such a great job this year with that short. And he's like such an incredible guy. He's so sweet. He's so kind. So I'm so excited to see what the future holds for him. Our next screening is Thursday at Santa Barbara International Film Festival. Nice. So we're going there next. And then after that, we're going to Annapolis. And then after that, I don't know. I have to look. But I hope that we get to screen it at more places and meet audience members. And I think the best thing about Sundance was how many people actually watched our film. Like if I go to Letterboxd, and also these comments are wild. Like I love audiences. Like they are giving me life. They are amazing. Like some of these comments are so funny. I was like rolling in bed today laughing. I was like, these are the best comments I've ever heard in my life. Like I think audience, like that's the greatest thing is that Sundance, if you have a short film with other festivals, not a lot of people see it. But if your short film goes to Sundance, the amount of people that will view your film is like thousands.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. No plans to come to the UK anytime soon then?
You know, I was in the UK in August.
Sure.
And my best friend lives in the UK. I'm trying to remember where she lives and I can't remember. I'm like, she lives there. Yeah. So I went there and then I went to Edinburgh.
Okay, yeah.
Pronounce it?
Yeah, Edinburgh, yeah.
Yeah, and then I went to Ireland. But I would love to have our film screen in London. I love London, and I would love to be there.
Maybe somebody's listening. Listening.
We're going to manifest this right now, and I'll come and hang. Yeah.
I was interested. Obviously, you've had experience working on shorts now, music videos. Kind of smaller projects to a feature film. What are you hoping to bring along to the feature filmmaking process? Because obviously it's going to be slightly different. It's going to be on a much larger scale. Is there something about the process of filming a short that you want to hold on to as you move into that kind of bigger medium?
One, I'd like the immune system of like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Sure.
I'd like to build. I want to be fit. I better have like an amazing immune system. I'm not going to get sick. In terms of like bringing other things to the feature, I think that hopefully this answers the question. Sure. Really good, kind, and respectful people. I think that a feature is years of your life. And that's the biggest difference between a short. A feature is going to take up, you're going to be with people in the trenches for weeks and weeks and days and days. And I think that you need to be around people that are kind, that treat other people kindly and respectfully. And are there to serve the story. And that's one of the biggest lessons, I think, moving forward, is that one of the biggest lessons I've learned in general, especially coming from advertisement, is like the people you surround yourself with are really, really, really important. And they're going to make or break your experience and your project. And I also think that lots of prep. Like I don't think I got enough prep on the short film. And I think with a feature, it's like you have to have so much prep and make sure everything is ready to go and you know what's going to happen at any second, because everything goes wrong. And if you don't have all your plans lined up, you're going to get derailed. So I think prep is like what saves you for everything. If that answers that question, hopefully.
I think that's a great answer. And again, a great tip as well to kind of anybody working within the independent filmmaking space and looking to create short films. Prep.
Yes, that's gold. You cannot prep enough.
So on the podcast, we've been working through our blind spots on the Sight and Sound greatest films of all time list, and we've seen a lot of films that are like favorites of filmmakers and of critics, and you get to see how some of these classics have influenced modern day films and influenced filmmakers. So I wondered, what are some of your favorite films, or maybe not your favorite films, but the films that have shaped or influenced the kind of films that you have made or you wish to make?
Oh my gosh, this list is so long. Okay, so let's see. I think Belle de Jour is a movie that really rocked my boat when I was young. I was just like, wait, what is this? So Belle de Jour, the piano teacher, shocked me. I'm very rarely shocked by movies. The piano teacher shocked me, and I love movies that can shock me. And I also just love Isabelle Huppert. I'm not French enough to pronounce her last name. She just intimidates me, and I love her so much. And I would say that a lot of Fellini films, so 8.5. The shots in those movies. Also, one of my favorite movies of all time is The Conformist. That movie is like rips my heart out and then feeds it back to me, and I love it every second of it. It's so beautifully shot. It is gorgeous. And then there's like this shot of these people on these white stairs, and it's stunning. And then there's like a chase sequence in the snow where he has to shoot this woman that he cares about, and she's like bleeding out in this white snow. It's like it is. The Conformist is beautiful, and it's also a movie about fascism. And I think that it's there's something about that movie that every time I watch, I get inspired. So I watch that movie probably like once a week. I love that movie. I just think it's a masterpiece. I really love really classic American films like On the Waterfront, where it's like the guy that is like, I don't want to save the day, and then saves the day, you know?
Yeah.
It's like something so great about that. I love that. I also, I love the director that did Ratcatcher. And
yes.
I'm Lynn Ramsey.
Yes, Lynn Ramsey.
Gosh, her short films. I don't know if you've got a chance to look at her beginning short films that she did.
No, I don't look at it.
They are wonderful. They are just. She did this movie called Little Deaths, and I watched it and I was like sobbing. I was like, why am I crying? I was like, this is like, it's like the first 7 minutes are about a cow, and it's about these boys that throw rocks at this cow, and these girls find the cow. And I was like sobbing my eyes out. It was like, her short films have inspired me so much. They're so amazing. And also Andrea Arnold. And Fish Tank.
I love Fish Tank.
Yeah. Oh God. It's just, these are movies that like, they make me feel something. And if a movie can make me feel something, it just resonates, and it like lives in my cells of my body, and like I carry it around with me forever. And I think that those are the movies that inspire me and that make me want to make art, because they're entertaining, but they also just have this feeling underneath, and like it's a very relatable feeling no matter what it is, like whether or not it's like Marlon Brando going up against the union workers or whatever it is, or whether or not it's a teenage girl who feels lost and doesn't feel connected to her mom and is struggling to find out what's going on with her personally and fitting in the world. So all these things to me like really resonate with me, and they're movies that I'll remember forever. I mean, my list is so long, and I know that there's like a time limit on this, but I think that that's like a touching the surface of movies that have just changed my life.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love to hear about other people's influences. I am interested. You mentioned earlier you like listed off a few films for Steven Snyder, your producer, and you kind of had a connection over those films. Were any of those films the ones that you listed there?
Yeah. Fish Tank was one.
Fish Tank. Yeah. Brilliant.
That movie is so good. I just like, every time I watch it, I'm like, this is phenomenal. And the lead really carries it. And I think that why we spoke about Fish Tank was because we knew that in the short film, this teenage girl was going to carry the film. So we sort of like made that comparison. Also, Call Me By Your Name was one of the ones that we discussed earlier on.
I feel like there was a little bit of that kind of like sun-kissed vibe in AZI,
definitely.
for sure.
Definitely. And I think that Call Me By Your Name has like a whole different thing going on to it. I always like to say sometimes our feature film is Call Me By Your Name, but like the erotic thriller version of that movie.
I'm sold. That sounds amazing.
Maybe that's like basically how I should sell the feature. But yeah, I mean, there's so many incredible artists out there. And the other really cool thing about going to Sundance and all these other festivals and seeing all these other shorts is like, wow, there's so many filmmakers out there that are going to make such a difference in the world and make such a splash. And so I think that was really exciting, is to meet all these other people that are starting out their careers and like seeing where they're going to go is like amazing. And thank you like so much for having me on your platform. Short films don't get a lot of love. And so I just like really appreciate you having me and talking to me about all this, and it means a lot. So thank you so much.
Oh, no worries. The pleasure is all mine. It's been fantastic to chat to you and get to know more about kind of behind the scenes and kind of insight into your process has been brilliant. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Well, that was a really great conversation there with Montana. It's really interesting to see how she has put her savings on the line for this proof of concept short film that I really do think is amazing, and it is just beautifully, beautifully shot. I can't wait to see how it's adapted into a feature film and how the short film itself fits into that. I'm really excited to see that. When Montana coined it as Call Me By Your Name as an erotic thriller, I was absolutely sold. So put that on the poster, make sure that line is in the pitches for sure. But that brings us to the end of this episode. Chris will be back with me next week, and we'll be having more cinematic discussions over some of the latest releases. So for now, that has been the episode for this week. If you've enjoyed it, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating or review. We do really appreciate it. And if you'd like to keep up to date with us, make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Film Angle. We also have a Film Angle playlist, so if you want to listen to what we listen to, you can find that in the show notes. Be sure to catch us next week for more cinematic discussions. Goodbye.